Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Earrings Off. We want to invite you to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. You can find us on Facebook at Earrings Off Podcast and on Instagram at The Earrings Off Podcast.
Welcome to Earrings Off. I'm Lou.
And I'm Teresa. Let's get started. Today, Lou and I speak with Sarah Maynard. Sarah is the founder and CEO of The Start Effect. She helps people understand the impact that the digital world has on their offline lives. You might want to listen to this one without your children because Sarah shares some real tips that will help you understand how to navigate conversations with your children about the digital space in a very positive way. One of the big takeaways and surprising things that I learned during this conversation was that it might not be such a good idea to ban your children from social media when they mess up on social media. But you know what? You're going to have to listen in to hear what Sarah has to say about that. It's a real good conversation, y'all. Stay tuned and enjoy.
Well, hello. We have with us today our guest, Sarah Maynard. We are excited to have you here, Sarah, on Earrings Off. Welcome.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here today.
Okay. All right. We're going to jump into the questions, Sarah. So Teresa and I were excited to have you on because this is such a topic always that our audience is interested in and that we are interested in. So what should and shouldn't we be sharing online, Sarah?
Whew, this is a big question and it's a hard one because everything it's different for everyone. But there are a couple of things that for privacy and things like that are kind of universal for everyone that we shouldn't be sharing. We shouldn't be sharing our private address at all. Unfortunately, there are ways for people to, especially if you are a registered voter, there are ways for people to find it, unfortunately, but you don't have to make it easy. Make it hard.
Yeah.
So when we're looking at sharing things, sharing our address, something that I've seen a lot, especially as like a new school year starts or ends, we see a lot of those like first day of school photos and first and end of school photos and things like that. But so when you're sharing those things, making sure that you're not taking the picture right in the front of your house with your with the number for your wherever, any identifying things about the home that you live in. And so going along with that, and I see this all the time, and most of it is because we don't think about it, because we think we're just posting to our friends and our family and people that care about us. And we forget that it can be accessed by anybody. Even if you have private settings set and say you have you're posting, say, to your Facebook account. I really caution against adding the name of your child's school at any time. Okay. For anything. And I know people get excited and we want to share those things, but for safety things, that's one that if you can, don't do it. And if you've done it before, because it happened, everybody, it's out there already, right? Go through and delete those posts and just, again, make it harder for someone, because the reality is that they're going to find the easiest route to whatever it is they're going to want to do.
And you know what, Sarah, as you're saying that, of course, I'm one of those folks that's always like, oh, so cute. And, the more back to school pictures, the better. But now that you're saying that, I see that all the time, where the kid is standing in front of their house, is clearly identified, or the school. And wow,
Yeah. So, and our devices have a lot of options for us to blur things out or
right,
so like if your kid's wearing if they have a uniform that has like the school emblem,
right,
put a
yeah.
sticker over it in like if you're putting it in on your Facebook page or your Instagram, or just blur it out, put a little bit of color on it, something to just cover it up. Because those pictures are adorable and we love to see them.
Right, right, right.
That
And
is
Yeah.
true.
but we do have to remember there are bad actors out there.
That's right.
Mhm.
That's what
And
I was gonna say.
yeah, yeah. So
It's
Yeah.
not people like you, Lou, because
yeah,
Right.
our focus is on the children, but the bad actors, they're looking for ways to find those kids, unfortunately.
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
Mhm.
scary. Yeah.
Yeah. So one other thing I wanted to say about things we should and shouldn't is think about if you're using social media specifically as a personal diary, or if you are using it to connect, to teach, to engage with other people, to grow relationships. Um, because there's no eraser on the internet, we really have to be mindful of once you put it out there, even if you're putting it out on a space that you have kept private and you have invited anyone that can see it into your space. A lot of times, many of us have hundreds, if not thousands, of people we've invited into our space. And though, when you meet that person, it could be like, oh, we have such a connection. It's great. I trust them. But we don't know their situation. And then really, we don't know what's going on their end. And so we have to just be mindful of what we're putting out. And one thing that I tell people a lot, specifically teens, is if you don't want to see this on the national news or post it on your grandparents' refrigerator, don't post it on the internet.
Right,
That's right.
right.
and
That's
and
good
just to
advice.
have that, yeah, just to have that in your mind,
Right.
because it makes you change how you interact
Absolutely.
in
Absolutely.
that space.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah.
Yeah, because they truly don't think about the parents. They do care what grandparents think.
Exactly.
That's exactly been my experience.
Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So, how do we find balance between being online and unplugged?
Mm. Yeah, this is a big one of mine that I really love talking about. I could talk about probably for hours and hours, because it's different for everybody, but it goes back to that intentionality and
Hmm.
being mindful of the stuff that we use. So the first step is really taking a consensus of all of the ways that we use digital devices, whether that is our phones, our tablets, our computers, our smart TVs, our smart watches. Like it's in so many aspects of our lives. So just taking a little bit of time and assessing all of the ways that we're connected,
Mm-hmm.
and then going a little bit deeper and looking at the ways in which we use it. So are we using it to listen to audiobooks, to listen to podcasts? Are we using it to just mindlessly scroll through TikTok? Like, and those are both, they're good in their own right, and there are places for it, but we want to make sure that we are setting up some boundaries for ourselves. Our devices have options now that you can either get an app, or like iOS has stuff just within the settings. Android has digital well-being, and you can set up time, like screen times for yourself, to say, you know what, okay, when I've been on Instagram for 15 minutes, tell me that I'm done for the day.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll give you the option to add more time if you are in there and you're doing something, but it does the work for you to remind you, because a lot of times when it pops up for me, I'm like, it's been 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was only on here for 2 minutes. That's all.
Yeah.
Because the apps are designed to suck us in and keep us in there. Instagram specifically does have an option within its settings to set up things to remind you, say, okay, you've been on here and you set it. So you just have to say to yourself, like, what is going to be the best amount of time for me?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Oh,
Yeah.
Finding that balance is about just looking at your own situation.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's a very personal thing. I mean, we all use it for different things. And and so I'm not going to go out and say, okay, well, you get 20 minutes of this and 5 minutes of that, and that's going to help you find balance, because it's not. So the hard part is it's hard. It's work.
Yeah.
And
It's
we
work.
have to, yep. And we
Figure
have
it
to
out,
put that
yeah.
intentionality into it,
Yeah.
and make the choice and be mindful.
Right. I like that you shared the different tools themselves have settings in them, because I didn't know that. I'm gonna actually look, because I'm one who will start scrolling through on Instagram and look up, and it's an hour later, and I'm so mad because you can't get that time back.
Yeah.
You just can't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of us don't realize how much we are using it. We just notice that the time is gone, because that they do a good job. They really they got it down.
They make it engaging. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Sarah, this next question, I tell you, I was interested in this. Why do I need an exit strategy online, and how do I create one? Talk to us about that.
Yes. So there are a lot of situations that we can find ourselves in online, and so many of the things that when I hear from people, if you've thought about this before, and really if you've talked about this with your kids before, because a lot of the situations in which we may need an exit strategy, if you had the same interaction in the physical world, like in a store or walking around somewhere, you immediately have these red flags. Like if somebody just walked up to you and said, hey, can I have a picture of your feet? You'd be like, no.
Yeah, red flag.
Like, absolutely not. Right?
Lights, everything.
Yeah. But you put this screen in between us and we're like, sure, what do you want our feet for? Fine. Okay. I was talking to a teacher actually that was telling me that female students of hers were getting messages from people saying, hey, I'll Venmo you $20 if you send me pictures of your feet. And they were like, sure, $20. It's easy.
Yeah. I've heard about this, Sarah. Yeah.
That's where it starts.
Exactly. And so anytime anyone asks you for your photo at all and so I have some pretty like clear guidelines, especially when I'm talking to my kids, because I want to make it very specific. Like if someone's asking for parts of your body that are covered by clothing at any time, that's a no. Don't send them that. If it's pictures of your hair, pictures of your feet, pictures of you in pajamas. So what I usually tell people is, if people are asking for that kind of stuff, if it's one, you can just say no, straight up, just nope, I don't do that. And empowering ourselves, empowering our kids to say, this is okay to tell someone, to just say nope.
Yeah. But Sarah, I think what you're saying is great, because as a parent, we have to make sure that we are empowering our kids, because sometimes if an adult approaches a kid, they're just at a loss. How do you say no to this person? And so you have to let them know, prepare them that, this may happen. And this is the response you are to give, and you're okay with that. And I'm okay as a parent. This is what I want you to do in those circumstances. Yeah.
I think that's so important, is having these conversations before they happen. Because if you can stop something before it escalates, you're in such a better position. And if you've had these conversations, and you don't have to get into the details of things. I mean, if they're older kids and they're interested in asking questions, then keep that conversation going. Like anytime your teen wants to talk to you, keep it up. But just starting these conversations and telling them what these red flags are, because they've grown up with this just being here. They haven't known anything differently. They don't recognize the differences in the social interactions, because you don't have all those body cues. You don't have that like weird vibe that you might get from somebody in person, because it's just a message across a screen. It's just usually text. And so it's hard to gauge those things. So we have to have those conversations about those red flags. So I'll do a quick rundown of my 5 red flags for everybody. So pictures about you, that's just nope. Things about your specific calendar, where you're going, what you're doing. When people start asking about that, nobody needs to know your specific schedule. Now, the exception for that is your guardians, your parents, your grandparents, people who are taking care of you, but they're not going to ask you that on social media.
Right,
So,
right,
or in a Roblox game or
right,
something.
right.
Again, it comes back to that personal information, things about your personal address, your phone number, any of that private information. If they are offering to give you gifts or money, I've seen this a lot where people will hear their kids will be offered like money on Roblox or digital gift cards, which are incredibly difficult to track, almost impossible to track. So that one is, and you know, I mean, if you're, so one of the things I've told my oldest specifically is like, if someone comes on and is impersonating another 15-year-old and it's like, hey, I've got $20 in Roblox, do you want it? And he was like, yeah, I'll take that. And I was like, okay, so let's switch it around. If you had $20 in Roblox, are you giving it to anyone?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And he was like, no. And I was like, so do you think any other 15-year-old is going to be like, I have free money, let me give it to my friend for no reason?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, give it to a perfect stranger.
Yes.
Stranger.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
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 So he was like, oh yeah, no, I won't be doing that. And I was like, just say no thanks and walk off. But if somebody walked up to you in the street and was like, here's $400, and now the problem is people do that now, right? There's those random acts of kindness that people will just walk up with cash for you.
Right.
But again, it's all situational, and so much of it is just talking and empowering and having these conversations.
Right. Well, I tell you, just yesterday, my husband and I took our almost 2-year-old grandson for a haircut. And when we took him, of course, his mom, and dad, they weren't there. So I wanted to get pictures for them. And so I was telling the stylist, I said, I want to take a picture of him. But, you can step back, because I didn't want to take her picture without her permission. She says, no, I'm fine. And then, but I did the before and then the after. And when he finished, there was another little boy right there with him, and I made sure that I moved him, my grandson, so I wouldn't get this other kid, because I didn't want him in there. I wouldn't want people taking pictures of my grandkid without our permission. So no, so I think we have to do a better job of being mindful, not only for ourselves, but also if somebody's doing that, to say, no, you know what? I don't want my kid in that picture. Do you mind not snapping him?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it does come back to that empowerment of ourselves too. You're exactly right. Like letting us, just having the thought to say, oh, you know what, hold on, I'm taking a picture of this individual. I didn't ask for you to be in it.
Right.
And I don't have your permission to share it anywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Because you don't, once someone gets it, you don't know who they're going to be sharing it with. So,
right. A lot of it, though, is situational, like we were saying earlier. I don't think that people realize when they open that lens that they're recording everything around them. So we were in a situation, my daughter and I were having brunch, and this family sitting across from us, they were recording. Right. And so they were recording, and they were in their own little world, not thinking about anybody around them. They were just having a good time, which I'd love to see. But where I got offended was the camera was on us. I could see us in the camera. So I just went, and my daughter was mortified. She was like, Mom. And I said, they need to know that they can see us. I don't want to be on there. And they immediately shut it down. But because they didn't want me on it as much as I didn't want to be on it, but they didn't realize that it wasn't top of their mind that they were recording us as well.
Oh, exactly. And I think we find that a lot because it is legal to when you're in a public place to film people. That doesn't mean it's right. That doesn't mean it's something we should be doing. And I think that's exactly what you should do, is if you notice someone is filming you, most of the time, they have no idea. Like they're focused on what the thing is that they are actually filming and have no clue about what's happening back here in the background.
Yeah.
All righty. What is a digital audit, and why is it important?
So I don't know about you, But when I post things to any of my social media, I don't really remember what I posted 3 days ago, 2 weeks ago, 6 months ago. And so a digital audit is just taking stock of all of the things that you have posted in a particular period of time. And taking a look at it and making sure that those are things that you still want to be presenting out into the world, that is the persona that you want to be showing people. Because when people find you on social media sites, that's their first impression of you. And unlike first impressions in the physical world, we don't have the opportunity when people come to find us in the digital world to have an immediate interaction. They just immediately see whatever it is that we have previously posted. And that goes for social media, it goes for websites, blogs, anything like that content that you have put out into the world. So the digital audit is just taking all of that in, looking through it, and making a decision on whether or not you still want that stuff out there. So for example, when I started my business, I had been using Facebook as a way to just connect to family and friends. And there were a lot of pictures of my kids. And when I started my business, I knew that it was a much more public facing, and I was going to have more people that I didn't know looking me up. And so I went through both my Facebook and my Instagram and deleted every picture that was there that you could see my kids' faces. Because I knew that I didn't want people that I didn't know finding that information.
Well, I tell you that's interesting, Sarah, because I had an experience. I just Googled one of my former homes, and it popped up with all of the pictures that, when it was on sale, for sale at one point. And I looked at that and I thought, all of that stuff is out there. And, that can be scary.
Oh, it can be really scary. Yeah. And it's really difficult because we don't talk enough about before someone gains a huge following, they just think, oh, it's just a couple of people. It's just a few of my friends. It's just my family. I'm not going to worry about it. But it stays there and it doesn't leave. Right. So if you've taken these pictures that identifies your location.
Right. And the whole layout of the house and all of that. And I was thinking, whoa. Yeah.
There was a recent article, I think it was in the New York Times, about Twitch streamers, and that they get notoriety so quickly and have so many followers so quickly that they haven't done the work beforehand to block out where they're living.
I've heard about that. There was an excellent New York Times article about that.
Yeah, and people are finding them, and it's scary.
Yes, they are finding them. It's scary. Very scary.
The thing though about deleting, so those pictures that Lou's mentioning, did you post them, Lou?
No, that's the thing. They were posted from the realtor. And if they don't do their job, it's up to the seller to go on there and make sure that stuff is down, because sometimes they don't.
Right. Well, a lot of times they don't.
So what I was going to say, Sarah, even if you delete your own pictures, say, somebody else could have copied those pictures. Right. So the thing is, once you put it out there, it's out there. Really, there's you might have deleted it from your profile, but they still could be out there. So you still have to be very careful.
Well, that's what I was about to say, which brings us back to the earlier point about, first of all, being intentional about what you post, being careful, and thinking to yourself before you even post, is this something I'm comfortable with being out there with strangers possibly? I may be sending it to 4 friends, but what if it gets out? Am I okay with that? So I think that's a question for all of us. So
yeah, you're exactly right. Once you post it, you lose control over it. Right. And I see this a lot with kids in Snapchat, because Snapchat, the way that it works is it will delete something after it deletes it after someone sees it. But if you are net savvy and first of all, anybody you send that to can screenshot and record it and do whatever they want with it. But there are back ways to get that cached stuff that's still sitting back there. And so it is, you're right. It's all about that intentionality.
Yeah, it is, I tell you. So, Sarah, how do you get kids to talk to parents or custodians about what they're doing online? How can we get that conversation going?
Yeah, so it's starting with the little things. One of the things that is my favorite thing to do is find out what kind of game they're into online, what kind of app they're using, and downloading it for myself, and then having them teach me. Say, hey, I saw that you were having fun with this. I'd love to know how it works. And so you've given them this position of authority, so they're ready to talk to you about something, because especially when we're talking about teenagers, right? They love to be the authority.
Yeah.
And so you've just given them an entry for conversation. And once you have that entry, then you can keep coming back to it and saying, oh, hey, I tried this. Is this how I'm supposed to do it? And then you've started that conversation again. And you can say, well, what do you really like to do? What are you watching that's really interesting? Who are you talking to? What kind of conversations are you having? And I've found that kind of, it softens that intro to conversation, because if you just pop in with, oh, what are you doing online right now? They're going to go, oh, just some stuff.
Right.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah. So if you are into, if you're a gamer also, and even if you're not, like playing, just popping into a Roblox game for 5 minutes and having them tell you how to do it. I'm not saying jump in with them and their friends, because they don't want that. But even like my, now 11-year-old his video games are his thing. He loves video games. And one of the things that we do is we have parent dates. So we have 4 kids. And so we will do individual dates with each of our kids so that they get some one-on-one time. Yeah. And my 11-year-old, his favorite thing to do is for us to sit down with a video game and we'll get like a fountain drink or a coffee or something, and just sit and play a game together for half an hour to an hour. And that keeps that connection open, and he's excited to show us how to play, and he really likes to beat us. So, and he's like, don't worry, you'll get better.
I really like the idea of parent date. I like that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, they're really fun.
Well, Sarah, I tell you one thing that Teresa and I struggled with when we started this podcast. Like you, we were very concerned that, okay, now that we've entered this realm, having, people having more access to us, and every, the way we interact, our photos, that kind of thing, and more information about our lives. That's scary. And we've been trying to balance that with the need for promotion of our podcast, which, this is our baby, our business we love, but also balancing that with security concerns.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So
it's a hard balance. Yeah. And you have to keep revisiting it.
Yeah.
Because your needs change.
Right. Yeah.
And technology changes
so fast all the time.
Yeah.
So I got a question here. Why is a ban on digital devices not the answer when my kid messes up online?
Yeah, because our first instinct as caregivers is to be like, oh, you did that wrong, let me take it from you.
Yes.
Yeah.
But so I like to think about it in terms of, if you have been teaching your kid to, say, drive a car, if they have an accident, if they do something that, they in some way mess up, your first inclination is maybe to take a break, but not for a really long time, because we want them to learn how to use it properly. So it may come with some more restrictions, some more boundaries. You may go back to, okay, well, you can use the car, but only while I'm in it. And so you can kind of use those same things when we talk about digital devices, because we don't want to take things completely away, because then that's not going to teach them how to do it when they're adults and something happens and they need to take a break. And so much of it is having that conversation, and saying, okay, so this thing happened. Maybe it could be as simple as you have been on your screen all summer and we need to reel that back in. And just sitting down and saying, okay, what do you need from this? And having them think about it, because that sometimes is the biggest thing, because they don't think about it. Most of the time we don't think about it. And so encouraging them to start that conversation, and saying, okay, well, you're going to have some more restrictions put on, because obviously we've given you too wide of a net and we need to bring it back in a little bit, but not taking it away entirely, because that just encourages them to hide it.
Yeah.
We don't want that.
I'm glad you said that, because with my youngest, that is how I found out that they don't need a phone. Taking the phone away, it never stopped a thing, because she was able to still communicate with friends on her computer. So they just figure out ways. They just figure out ways to do it. They're so much smarter than us, and that's the scary thing when it comes to this technology. They're not afraid to try things, and they're not afraid because I tell you, I think that with the one you mentioned, Snapchat, I think the intention was there to protect our children with this thing deleting after it's been seen, right? It was for protection, but it was our kids who figured out, oh, well, you think that it's going to be deleted. Well, guess what? I have figured out a way to save it. And they're quite savvy with learning how to get around. And I think, all of this is going back to the fact that we have got to know our children before we introduce them to the internet. We've got to sit down with them, understand them, and have that relationship with them before they get onto these devices. Because if you don't, you're not developing it once they get onto these devices. It's a wrap. It's done.
So much harder. I feel like have you ever seen some of those like nanny shows where the nannies come in and the kids are just like, the parents are like, I don't know how to deal with my own children. Like, I feel like it's very similar. Once you hand them a device, if you don't have that relationship already, it is 1,000 times harder to reel it in.
Luckily for us, we were able to have that relationship, and the way we introduced that whole smartphone thing, I think helped, but it was painful for our children in that all of their friends had them. But our idea was that you just need to call us when it's time to pick you up, and you can text us, but you don't need access to the internet 24/7. So it was very late in their lives, according to standards that whoever set up before they were introduced to smartphones. So
that was in our house too. I was like, well, for one, our first idea was, okay, well, once you get to middle school, you're going to be doing a couple of other things. You're going to need a way to contact us. But then right before our kids went to middle school, we shut down everything. So I was like, well, now you really don't need one. Like, you're not going anywhere. And one thing that I like to tell parents about social media specifically is that until your child is 13, they're actually legally not allowed to get on them because of different regulations and things. You have to be 13 to be able to get on those apps, just because of how much information they are getting from you. And so a lot of times that's an easy out for parents to say, look, I'm not the bad person here. Like,
that doesn't matter either.
It doesn't matter, but it helps a little bit. It gives you a little edge, but they do find ways around.
It helps when you have that relationship with your child and they respect you, and what you say they honor. So
that is key.
Absolutely. Well, Sarah, those are all of the questions that we have for you today. Thank you so very much for coming on Earrings Off. We wanted to ask you, though, do you have one last bit of advice or guidance for our audience that you wanted to share?
I think my number one thing for people of anyone who is using the digital world on a daily basis, which is most of us, is just to remember that it is okay to not do anything on the internet. It is okay to say, I need a break. Mm-hmm. It's okay to put up that email message that says I'm going on vacation, but put it all over your social media and say, hey, I'm out for a while. And just empower yourself to know you can take care of you and you don't have to worry about all those shoulds. We're human beings, not human shouldings.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Take care of you first.
Thank you so much, Sarah, again for joining us. Just a wealth of information. So our very best to you, and take good care.
Thank you so much for having me. This is wonderful.